Alright, so here is the video. It is called the best characters to pull. Updated Genshin Impact 5-star tier list. So they're going to be 5 stars. And this is by the YouTube channel Yikes. Yikes. Yeah. And remember to, even if I may be criticizing what they say or say certain things, it's all love at the end of the day, I'm just criticizing the criticism. I have nothing bad to say about the person. I'm sure they make really fantastic content. Took a little scan of their channel, got a lot of fun videos. So make sure to send them some love at the end of the day here. Yeah, let's go. Put a little speed here. A little fast speed here. Alright, let's do it. Yes. Uh-huh. Okay, that was really quick. I mean, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with Aloy's placement either, right? When I said I would make if I would make a tier list, right? The lowest I would put is C. She would definitely be in that C spot. Yeah, she doesn't really do much. She throws the bomb, does ice. She has like a little bit of Yoimiya properties if enough of the bombs hit, or she gets ice shots. Again, you can definitely make that work. But like, I think the main thing with like Aloy and characters that would be in this C rank is like you can make them work, but those other three really have to be like lifting that character up a lot, and then what that character brings isn't too much. So I think that does fit for Aloy. I wish there was a little bit more explanation. It felt like he was just kind of like, oh, she has internal cooldown problems and she bad. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this is supposed to be like more of a comedic spin or more of like a intelligent discussion. I'm not sure what the kind of vibe is. I mean, it was during a live stream, so like maybe it was just kind of like a chill kind of thing. But whatever. Okay. So here's the thing. So this is where I would disagree harshly, right? And I do know that this is like, everybody's like, oh, Dia's worst character, whatever, right? The thing with Dia, and I don't know if he's gonna talk about it, but I'm gonna talk about it now, and maybe he'll talk about it. I'm not sure. I did watch this video once, but I don't really remember too much because I was eating at the time. So Dia, right? She is good with two very specific comps, but in those comps, she is one of the best teammates to have. Those two comps are C0 Nivillette and Lynette. No, Linny. Yes, Linny. So the way Linny works, for people who don't know, Linny needs 3 pyro characters with him to get all of his like potential, all of his passives, right? A lot of people take Linny, Bennett, Shunling, because Bennett, Shunling, amazing damage team combination. And then Anemo, obviously, to swirl the Pyro to get some more damage out. But Dia in that team is actually quite nice because Dia gives Linny some super armor. And at least with me playing Linny, and sometimes whenever I see some people playing Linny, especially against aggro enemies, sometimes enemies will just come at you, and when you're charging your shot's going to be interrupted, And so having somebody like Dia there to be able to provide some super armor, and to be able to do her additional attack too is pretty nice, and she can activate tenacity as well. Like there are roles, right? There are things that she can do. Unlike a character like Aloy is just kind of a DPS and that's it. I think if a character has something that isn't DPS, I do think at minimum, right, they would be like C or B. Right, because she can provide things. She can be a support if you need her, and especially C0 Nivillette. I was talking about Linny for a little bit. Let's talk about C0 Nivillette. C0 Nivillette is really interesting because you play him in 2 ways. You either play him double Hydro, so you don't fully stack your passive, or you play him with 4 element. What does 4 element mean? It means the way Nivillette works is he needs different Hydro reactions, and at C0 he needs 3. So you take C0 Dia to do the Vaporize, right? Hydro plus Pyro equals Vaporize, and same thing, she's giving super armor, which is really, really nice for a character like Nivillette C0, because C0 Nivillette can be interrupted during this giant water stream, the Hydro pump, right? And there's probably a lot of people who have C0 Nivillette, and a lot of people are encouraging others to take C0 Nivillette, and having that super armor, having something that's just like, okay, can't be interrupted, and you're activating okay, the words escape me again. And you're activating Vaporize is really good. I forget who it is. It's another YouTube content creator. Oh my goodness, he's like a really put it in the comments. He's like a really famous one. He's like so Abyss focused and all about talking different builds. Ah man, I don't remember, but I remember a clip about him. I remember he had this one clip where some guy was talking about like, oh, you use Qiqi as a battery, even though Qiqi doesn't make elemental particles. And then he like laughs at him. I don't remember. It's bothering me right now. But you guys probably know who I'm talking about. He actually showed that build. It was Dia, Caesar Nivilette, Nahida, and then Raiden, which was like crazy, right? Because you get the Bloom reaction, electro charge reaction, then the vaporize reaction, and then sometimes you get some like Burgians too with like Dia, and it's just like just a great just mishmash of everything. What am I saying? I'm saying a lot, but what am I saying? I'm saying that I don't think Dia would be D because Dia has utility outside just being a DPS. I do think her DPS is not very good, and she would fall under the category of Aloy, where everybody else in the party is trying to help her and lift her up, but she, even while lifting her up, she doesn't do much. But because she has that support options, because she has the ability to be a pretty solid support, tenacity support, not even Burgian. I didn't even talk about Burgian. You could do Burgian Dia. It's kind of like whatever. It's kind of just okay-ish. But because she has that support utility with the super armor, with the proccing of tenacity, with two specific builds, especially like those are just two specific builds. You can use it in, you can use Dia super armor and proccing in like a bunch of builds. But those two very specific builds, I know for sure are tried and true, which is a build with Lenny, which is very solid, and C0 Nivilette. She is one of the best party members for C0 Nivilette. Yeah, I don't know if I was gonna talk about that. I went on a big tangent. Let's listen. I think he's thinking about it too much as a DPS, right? I'm going a little bit faster just so we can get through this video. I do agree the burst is not very good either. Burden's fine, yeah, it's fine. I agree as a damage, but that's not all she does. Yeah, see, that's the problem, right? Like, what is this list, right? What does this list mean? It just seemed like the way he was describing the tiers, it was just like, oh, characters are good, very game changing. Is this a DPS tier list, right? If this is a DPS tier list, I would agree. Like if this is a main DPS tier list, I would agree that like, okay, Dia would be down here with Aloy. But if it's like, oh, we are ranking these characters on how good they are and what they can provide, Dia can provide more than just being a DPS, and that not being considered, I think sucks pretty hard, because that is a part of Dia, a very important part, right? They made a whole supporting set, the something Glow, right? They made Glow for her supporting set a little bit more. Even though sometimes tenacity is a bit better, but I digress, right? I think that's unfair to Dia to only rank her as a DPS, even though I agree that her DPS is not very good. I agree that her burst is not very good, but that's not only what Dia is, and I think it's unfair to put her with Aloy, you know, considering that. Now here's the thing with Jean. Jean's gonna be really, yeah, okay, you mentioned Farina. Wait, what? Okay, wait, and this is kind of what the clip. I don't think I internalized it the first time, because this is what the clip I made, right, was based on this. What is he talking about? Farina's insane. Bro, Farina is one of the most insane characters in this game. If you can play Farina well, you know how to build Farina and build a team around Farina, you have a constant 40% damage buff and a really strong off-field one of the strongest off-field DPSs. And some healing too, but her healing is kind of like whatever. But the important, and innate, oh my goodness, I'm just labeling all the things, and enabling people to run in a whole, people can run Merisose Hunter because of her existence. Like, there's not many characters that can do that, so I don't know what he's talking about here. Let me hear that sentence again. But I think that's so wrong though. Saying that Farina didn't change the game that much. Like, okay, I think you can argue like she didn't change the game as much as Dendro changed the game. I think that's fair. And like maybe even like Nahida's existence, maybe that's fair. I think that one's arguable, right? Because Nahida enables some of the strongest reactions in the game, but that's because Dendro is so good. Farina enables everybody. Like, that's the thing. Because she has a damage buff, it's not an attack buff. It's not a hydro damage buff. It is a pure damage buff. Everybody gets boosted. literally everybody gets boosted. I know people say like, oh, you need to take a healer with her, and da 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 da. You don't even necessarily need to take a healer with her, right? If you have a catalyst character that can carry prototype Amber, you can use that too. Or sometimes you don't even need to run a healer. Like, even if you aren't like getting the entirety of her buff, still having that off-field really high damage, it's just really good. She has Hydro Oz, right? Like, no, even sometimes even stronger. Have you seen Crabuletta? I don't think you guys have met Crabuletta yet. She hits hard. Like, she has so much damage. Provides one of the strongest buffs in the game. Does have some healing application, even though it's not really the best, but she does have it. She is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe they don't play Farina that much, or maybe they didn't look up too many Farina builds, but I do think Farina changes things in a major way. Again, intense damage. Super intense damage. Such strong DPS. And then that 40% damage. Is it 40 or 45? It's a really big number. Like, up to a 40% damage increase. Alright, I'm back after some research. It's freaking 75%. I'm sure half the comments are yelling at me, telling me, no, Meteor Falcon, it's 75%. Oh my goodness, it's 75%. You're telling me that this character doesn't break this game when she can potentially give everybody, any team, a 75% damage boost, even if you can't reach the maximum value of 75%. Like, 75%. And speaking of Jean, Jean is one of the best characters to put with Farina. If you activate Farina Burst and then go straight to Jean Burst, you know what you did? You activated a 75% damage boost to everybody. I don't know. Is that not crazy? Is that not game changing? Is that not game breaking? Giving every single team that exists in this video game a 75% damage boost for just having two characters in the party. It doesn't even need to be Jean. Like, I'm just talking about Farina right now, but let's just focus on Jean for a little bit because it's about Jean. Jean's existence, letting you have that Farina Jean equals 75% damage boost, 100% uptime, because Farina has 100% uptime on her buff and Jean can get her burst back pretty quick. A 24/7, like, all the time, 75% damage boost is absolutely ridiculous. And if he puts Jean low because of that, well, I think, okay, again, it just depends what this list is about. And I think I'm getting lost in the idea of what does this list mean, right? I'm getting lost in the idea of what does this list mean. If this list means, like, oh, how are these characters individually, like, on their own, not including anybody else, I think Dia could be fine, because then you can only rank her based on DPS, and I think Jean would be fine there too, because all the things that she provides, if we're not thinking about the actual specific team combination character, like if we're not thinking about the specific combinations, like it's Viridescent and healing, which there's better healers and there's characters that can better do Viridescent because other characters that do Viridescent have some gathering capabilities, right? So I think that's fair. But again, if Farina's in the equation, Jean is S, right? Jean being with Farina is 75% damage boost to everybody. That is too powerful. That is too ridiculous not to consider. And so, like, she gotta be up there. Homegirl gotta be up there. But again, I don't know what this list is about. If this list is about the individual character strengths and not specific character combinations, I do think that's kind of a misrepresentation of what Genshin is, right? Because the characters don't play alone, right? It's a party of 4. So I do think it is important to consider, like, what they bring to the party of 4, and also consider what do they bring to specific characters. Because I think if it's a character like Farina who can work with everybody, like Jean doing that, like giving free 75 to everybody with Farina, with also activating Viridescent, like, that's S. That sounds to me like very strong. Theoretically could be a game changer, but Farina's enabling the game changing aspect. But I think minimum that has to be S of a character that can supply the Viridescent buff, debuff? Would you call it debuff? The Viridescent debuff, along with a free 75 bonus because of Farina. I would consider that very strong, and I would consider you know what specific character combinations you could you could combine. Yeah, I think it's important to consider specific team combinations. I think that's the main thing that this list is missing. Is EX here seems to be not ignoring, but at least not giving value to specific character combinations, like Dia with Nebula, Dia with Linny, like Jean with Farina. I think if those are valued, then a lot these two characters get bumped up, which I think they should be. Um, but hey, that's my criticism. It's all opinions at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Oh, it's Mona, right? I actually don't think Mona's that amazing. She has her niches, right? Mm-hmm. That's true. She is good for clickbait. This is very true. Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't. Ooh. See, this is why I think pluses are important. I would put Mona B plus, right? I think putting her B, cause see, this is the problem. If you're missing C, right? You put her with D, and you put her close to a character like Aloy. Like she's not just one tier above Aloy. I don't think. I think that's why some better separation I think would be necessary. Because okay, what does Mona do? Mona helps freezing teams. She's pretty good with Electro Charge. You can use her in like Dendro comps if you need some, if you don't want to use Barbara or things like that. Of course, you have those one-shot screenshot things, which I think is a useful thing, right? If we're talking about like again, are we talking about abyss clears? Are we talking about general play? Like I do think screenshot would be, at least be a merit in like just play, which is why I would say she would be B plus or something. Like there's nothing about her that's bad, but like you only have 4 slots on the team, so maybe you wouldn't take her. And she doesn't do a whole lot. But she comes through in the clutch, and there's nothing bad about her, right? I don't think she has any issues, which I think she would belong in the middle, right? There's no issues about her, so I think I would put her a little bit more in the middle than putting her in the bottom, because she doesn't have any real problems. They were talking about like movement or whatever, or how it feels to move on her. Mona should not be on the field that often, unless it's like she was a bloom driver or a hyper bloom driver or something like that. Like Mona shouldn't be on the field, so movement with her shouldn't really be a factor too much. So you slap the E on, slap the burst on, bada bing, go for it. All right, here we go. We got D Luke, the OG S rank, the OG S rank. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, yeah, I don't know about this one, buddy. Okay. I wonder if this comes from the lack of playing a character. So fun fact, I do abyss clears on my stream, twitch.tv/meteorfalcon, by the way. You definitely get a better grasp of characters if you can play a lot of different characters. Especially at different build points. Diluc is actually a really good character. And why is Diluc a good character? Because he is Pyro. We are in a very Hydro-dominated society right now in Genshin Impact. I don't like calling it meta, because I don't think meta in Genshin really exists. Because, again, like I said in the beginning of the video, the ceiling of Genshin is very low, so you can kind of do anything anywhere. But even because of that, I do think Diluc is a very strong character. He just has really good damage. I wouldn't put him down here with Aloy because, again, I think Aloy definitely represents this D tier very nicely because it's, again, going back to the idea of, like, everybody else is pushing her up and then just her trying to be DPS is a very big struggle, too. Trying to be DPS with Diluc is not a struggle at all. He has some pretty solid numbers. He has a triple E slash, all which have pyro application, all which can vaporize. He has a pyro buff on himself, so he can do his normal slashes with vaporize. And again, vaporize. Again, this is my I think this is my main criticism with this list, is he's putting these characters in a bubble where it's just like, oh, what this character can do is not enough, so I'm going to put them very low. But it's just like you can't rank characters based on that because it is 4 people on a team, right? It's 4 people on a team. Diluc is not in the same place that Aloy is because as a kit, his kit is fine. His damage numbers are a bit low, but his kit isn't something that you have to pull your teeth out to make work. He has 3 pyro slashes, which are all very nice. He has a burst that hits decently hard, and it gives him a little pyro buff. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just that his damage numbers are a bit low. Like, I would put him probably on this list. I would put him at a B. And honestly, even in my own list, I would put him in a B. He's just solid. He's fine, right? He's just fine. He's a solid okay, pretty good pyro DPS that likes to vaporize. Guess what? There's so many characters that love to activate vaporize. Qiqi, one of the best characters in this game. Farina, right? One of the best characters in this game. Like, it is very easy to make a very good D-Look comp. Like, again, going back to what he said in the beginning, it's like, oh, you can make these characters work, but it would be difficult and it may not be worth trying. I agree with that when it comes to Dia DPS. I agree with that when it comes to Aloy DPS, but that just isn't true when it comes to D-Look DPS. It is not hard to make him work. You just slap some Hydro characters with him, with some Anemo, with some buffing, with like maybe Bennett or something, and you can make him work. His damage is not that bad that it would be in the same. It's A, his damage is not that bad that he would be in the same spot, and A, he's not clunky at all that he would be like an Aloy where you have to hit 3 bombs with Aloy to make her have like cryo arrows, or it's not like Dia DPS where it's like, you know, these punchers like don't do too much, they can't activate Hydro swords and things like that. All of his slashes activate Hydro swords and things like that. He is a perfectly fine DPS. He is perfectly capable. It is not difficult to play him. I harshly disagree with this. Oh, they put him up. Okay, come on, don't insult people because they play the. Come on. Okay, I don't know. He might just be ribbing his chat or things like that. Come on, bro. You can't call people babies just because they disagree with your opinion. Now, come on. Okay, Qiqi. But what does Qiqi do? I actually harshly disagree with this. What does Qiqi do? Again, I gave specific examples for Dia about where Dia is perfect. Again, she's really good in 2 specific comps. They are very specific comps, but at least they're things that she can specifically do. What does Qiqi do? Like, I guess can activate tenacity. There's a lot of people. There's nothing unique to Qiqi that she can do that anybody else can't do. But let me finish this first. This is true. She also doesn't make particles. Yeah, which is an issue. But what do you mean? What do you mean? This is crazy to me. So he was willing to put D-Luke in D, but he's putting Qiqi in B? What, because she can heal? What should be? Bro, I can slap a prototype Amber on freaking Yai Miko and Yai Miko can heal. What does that mean? Just because she can heal, she deserves B? Like, no. Like, does that mean that no healer can be in D? I feel like that's pretty dumb. Sorry. I think I don't know. I don't agree with this at all. Like, maybe the revival from C6, but that's really not something that should be considered. I think she's the perfect definition of a D rank healer. There's so many better healers in this game that can provide more. Bro, even freaking Dory can give you energy. Like, I know everybody clowns on Dory, like, oh, Dory's the worst character in this game. At least Dory being a healer, she can also give you free energy. Like, Qiqi cannot give you energy because she can't make particles with the E. She cannot make particles with the E. So, I don't know. Am I wrong? I don't know. My reasoning for saying Qiqi belongs at the bottom is that she doesn't really do anything unique that anybody else can't do. Wait, words are hard. Dear, I do think Qiqi's a cool character though. Yeah, like, I don't know. There wasn't. I feel like, I don't know, his explanations are not very good either. What was his explanations for putting Qiqi not in D? Is that just she can heal? Okay. Yeah. That's... What do you mean? Like, no, she's the worst choice in all of those things that you mentioned. She's probably one of the worst choices for Superconduct, because you have, like, characters like Official and Shinobu. Shinobu's also a better healer as well. Like, there's plenty of other things that you can provide. I don't know. Like, I think that arguments that he made for Qiqi, you can make for, like, Aloy in DPS, or you can make for Dia in DPS. Because, like, I remember at the end of the day, any Genshin character can do anything. Like, obviously, anybody can clear the Abyss if you put in enough time, effort, and creativity, right? Yeah, I don't agree. I don't know. I've said my piece. Catching's super solid. Yeah, catching's really good. Yeah, a lot of damage. You can get the burst out a lot. Free critical rate. He's very good. was gonna skip a little bit. I think that's. I think that's fine. I think that's a fine place for her to be. I played Keqing in some comps. I personally do not like her playstyle, but it is hard to deny that she, she's definitely super strong. I would say that she definitely would prefer the stronger Dendro characters, but doesn't mean you can't use the weaker Dendro characters like Dendro MC or Kirara or things like that. I don't know. S is a bit high. Like I would personally put her like an A plus. But maybe I need to see more of Keqing. But I think the things that she can provide is very good. She's just a very good, solid Dendro DPS. She saves you a lot of critical rate because she gets 315. She builds her burst really fast. I don't know. I can go either way. I think this is fine. I really don't have any complaints. Dendro Good. Dendro Good. Tighnari is even better. Tighnari is ridiculous. I agree with this. Yes. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, but I say he's not the best with Hyper Bloom. Yeah. I think so. I do think Tighnari is a bit better than Keqing. I do think Tighnari is a little bit better than Keqing. Maybe it's personal bias. I don't know. I feel like Tighnari can just do a bit more damage because it's just E, hit the floor, hit the floor, hit the floor, E, hit the floor, hit the floor, hit the floor, burst. Bada bing, bada boom. Keqing's rotations are a little bit more like involved. I mean, with that being counted, is optimal play being assumed here, right? I don't know. I more or less agree with that though. Go subscribe, I guess. Oh, really? Did he undervalue Miko? I have thoughts about Miko too. That's fair. But should that be considered though? Could you not assume optimal play? Yes. 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 Surprising, considering it's a good damage boost. Yes. Yes. Okay. Talked a lot about Miko. What? Wait, hold on. Choto Mate. What do you mean she's not plug and play? What do you mean? You plug an artifact set on her, you right here, right now, switch, and then you continue on playing your Dendro character or Hydro character. That is super plug and play. What do you mean? Wait, what? Not really, no, what? Miko doesn't need that much energy, I don't think so. Am I crazy? She makes a lot of energy, first of all, and even then, some people recommend not even using Miko's burst. Miko's burst is, that was one of the criticism I was going to make about Miko, is that sometimes you don't really want to use her burst. Her burst is really strong, but it's very clunky, because A, it uses up all your turrets, it does reset the cooldown on them, but and the rotation can be kind of awkward. But sometimes it can miss a lot, right? It has some auto-targeting problems. The damage is good, but I don't think... Again, I think it just depends what team you're playing, but that's why I think it could work as a strength for Miko too, is that you don't need... If you don't want to build energy on Miko, you don't need to. You can just play her with just turret, go to another next character, and then she'll aggravate, then she'll Hyper Bloom, or whatever, what have you. I played her a lot in Ayato Hyper Bloom. I would do Ayato, Nahida, Miko, and Shinobu was getting most of the Hyper Blooms, but Miko's just overall damage from her turrets was just doing a lot, and sometimes I would burst on her, and sometimes I wouldn't. It would just depend on where the enemies were at, how many enemies were left, how much damage I needed to do, and things like that. Sometimes you just may not want to burst, so I don't quite agree with the idea that she's not plug and play, that you need energy requirements, because first of all, I don't even think she needs that much energy. She's an electro character, first of all, and she makes a lot of particles, second of all. She charges other people, so I kind of disagree with that. And then again, secondly, you could just not burst with her. You don't need... She is a character you do not need to burst with. Her burst is very strong, but you don't need to burst with her. So I harshly disagree with that idea that she's not plug and play. I think she's very plug and play. I do agree with that placement, though. I think that placement's fair. I would maybe put her in S-. If I was making my own list, I would maybe put her in S-. because I do think she does have some clunkiness with her. She lacks super armor when she's placing turrets, so she can be very much be knocked out of placing turrets, and sometimes she can die because she's very squishy. But I think the placement's fine. But those reasonings are weird though, yeah, because you don't need to burst with Miko. Benti! Power crept! Wait, shh. Have you met Kaide Harakazuha? Even then, like, I don't think he's that good anymore. Like, maybe 1.0. If we're talking 1.0, he's one of the best. If we're talking now, he's okay. He's very okay. Not anymore. Even against mobs? No, I mean, I hard disagree. I very hard disagree. I think even, like, here's the thing, right? Venti is the king of trash mobs, right? Venti is absolutely the king of trash mobs, but the issue is, trash mobs just aren't that much of a threat, right? You can use Kazuha, you could just use a single target. You can still do single target team comps and deal with trash mobs perfectly fine. Trash mobs aren't really a threat. The only time trash mobs are a threat is when you have to protect the tower. Like their trash mobs can be a threat. But outside of that, even with the multi-waves that we've been having, there's never a time that people have gone like, oh, make sure, I really hope you have Venti for this. It's like, no, there's definitely workarounds. There are a lot more characters now that can hit, like, in a wider area. You have characters like Kazuha, Sucrose does the job perfectly fine while also giving you an EM boost and things like that. Like, there are plenty of other options. Yeah, Venti is not, this is not version 1.0 anymore. This is not version 1.0 anymore. I don't think Venti's that good. I do think he's still very solid. I think the Twister is great. Viridescent is amazing. I would not put him above Jean, first of all. I would not put him above Miko, Ayaka, Tainari. No way, no how. Again, king of trash mobs, but trash mobs aren't really that good. He can suction a lot, but a lot of the times those big chunky HP enemies, even if they can be sucked in, just having the Twister in there isn't gonna do much. Right? Because his damage matters too, and he doesn't have the greatest amount of damage, and you know, sometimes he just doesn't do it at this point in time. He just doesn't do enough really anymore. He just doesn't do enough anymore. I don't think that I would not put him this high. Mm-hmm. But no one takes Venti for those, I don't think. I think if it's trash mobs, you're taking what you're taking. I don't think you're just like, oh, I definitely need to take Venti for these trash mobs, because it's just like, after those trash mob, like after that big group of mobs, it's gonna be a boss right after, right? Like all the, because the only difficult floors are like 12, and then you can maybe say like the final floor of 11 maybe, right? Like, you're not taking Venti for, oh, I need to take Venti for this first room, but because it's just like the next room coming up has a boss, or the next room coming up after that has like whatever. Like, maybe you can come back and take Venti, but I don't think that's a point in his plus. I think that's a point in the fact that he's a very solid character. Like, I think he's the definition of an A rank character, where he's still super duper solid, but there are plenty of other better options, and even what he can provide is still good, but is not the best, and sometimes doesn't feel like he has much impact besides just activating Viridescent, which plenty of other Anemo characters can do. So I definitely think he's being overvalued right now. What do you mean they're unparalleled? They're literally paralleled by better people. you can't use the word unparalleled when... Do I just don't know the definition of the word unparalleled? Unparalleled. Having no parallel or equal. He literally has a parallel that's better than him. You can't use the word unparalleled when there is literally a parallel. That's better than him. Oh my gosh. Maybe I'm ribbing too much of the specific words, right? And I acknowledge that. But come on, you cannot use the word unparalleled on a character, one of the few Genshin Impact characters that's been power crept. Like, there's not much power crept in Genshin, which is something that I love about Genshin. But the few times that it does happen, using the word unparalleled, like, come on now. Shout out to my boy Kaede Harakazuha. And even outside of Kaede Harakazuha, Venti's just not... He ain't what he up to. This ain't 1.0 anymore. He's cool. Even back in the day, Klee wasn't that good. Again, you can't put these characters in a pocket. Because she is Pyro, she's good. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many good Pyro characters in this game. And not having that be included as a factor is like, come on now. And again, I'm comparing it to Aloy because I think Aloy and DPS Dia are the best definitions. Nothing about Klee, except maybe like her animations of like her normal attacks or whatever, because you can do like specific hop things, can be a little bit frustrating, but she does have perfectly fine Pyro applications that can work very well with Hydro characters, which are very, very good. And her damage numbers aren't like the worst. Like, again, if it doesn't take that much work to make Klee good, which again, I think that's what the D tier should be, is it takes a lot of work for them to be good, but she is Pyro. You can just put her with Pyro supports and an Amo and make her work perfectly fine. And I think if a character can do that, they can't be in D. I genuinely think that's how it works. Catalyst character, so all her attacks have Pyro. She can vaporize, perfectly fine. I don't think that would constitute D. Constitute C maybe? Where's the C rank? Is what I would say. Yeah. But that like you just explained why it would work. Again, you defined D by being like, at the beginning he defined D as being like, it's not worth it to make it work because they still don't do that much, which is what Aloy is. It's like you can make Aloy work, but it doesn't give you too much. And it's just like, you can't do that and in the same breath be like, oh, Klee was making Frina drop like huge numbers, or they were dropping huge numbers. Like, even if a character like Shunling does exist that can do a lot more damage, like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But it's just like, this, first of all, this is a 5-star tier list. There's no 4 stars here. And even then, if like 4 stars are included, like, do we bump Miko down because like Fischl exists and she's like a free-to-play option, sometimes she can do as much? Are we bumping Venti down because Sucrose can do very similar things and gives an EM buffing as well? You know, you can't play both fields, right? You can't do things like, you can't be like, oh, I'm including this 4-star here to say this character belongs down here, but I'm not going to talk about this character here because, like, you can't have it both ways. I don't think you can't have it both ways. Yeah, I don't agree with this. But putting Klee down here does not make sense. Like, I don't think any Pyro DPS. Why does he always undervalue the Pyro DPSs? Pyro DPSs are like some of the best DPSs because they can react really well with Hydra. Oh my god, he put Diluc back down? I mean, I've said my piece about Diluc. What the heck? Tartaglia's really good. I don't think he's that amazing though. Whoa. You can play Hyper Bloom Tartaglia. I've played Hyper Bloom Tartaglia when I'm helping people clear the abyss. That's perfectly fine. Don't start skimping out on Hyper Bloom Tartaglia. I don't know where that's coming from, bro. Don't be throwing shade at Hyper Bloom Tartaglia. That's a good team. What the? Wait, don't. I feel like my issue here is like not too much is explained. He just says things that like, oh, you guys know, like, International Tartaglia, it's just a really good team. And I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, I think he made better arguments for Ayaka. I mean, I said Ayaka. Keqing. I think he made better arguments for Keqing, and then he bumps up Tartaglia ahead of Keqing. I don't know. I mean, I do think Tartaglia is really strong, but the main things that hold him back is playstyle, because it can be a little bit difficult to play him because you gotta like be aware of your cooldowns and things like that. I do think he is a very, very strong character. Of course, International Tartaglia being a really powerful team, but I don't think, I don't know, would I put him above Tighnari? I don't know. I mean, again, because what makes him good is like Bennett Shunling, and even they said that like you can't put him. Yeah, you know, and this is my problem again. Okay, wait, he put him up here. Wait a minute. Pause. he put Tartaglia up here because of International Tartaglia specifically, but you can't put Jean up here because of Farina Jean. That's only 2 characters. Tartaglia International is like minimum 2, which is Bennett Shunling, who are the 2 best 4-stars in the game, plus like potentially an Anemo character. But wait, why is the team considered? Okay, why is specific team comp being considered with Tartaglia, but with Jean it's not being considered? With Dia, with C0 Nivilet, it's not being considered. With Diluc, it's not being considered. Why is it considered for Tartaglia? Wait, that's kind of messed. Like I don't see. This is I think again this is the thing. This is my main criticism. Is like there's no, what's the word? There's no basis, right? There's no solid backbone, I feel like, to this list. There's no solid backbone at all. It just kind of feels like, oh, I kind of know these characters and I think I know how this is how well these characters can do, but without giving it a solid backbone, it's some characters are just like, oh, I'm ranking this character based on this. Well, I'm ranking this character based on these other criteria. The criteria, there you go. The criteria is not solid. I feel like the criteria is not solid at all. Because if you're going to bump up Tartaglia because International Tartaglia exists, then you bump up Jean. Then you bump up Diluc. Then you bump up, like, Qiqi. Then you bump up Support Dia, right? Like, these arguments don't make sense if you're just playing 2 fields. I think, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think he's game changing either. I don't think if somebody picks up Tartaglia, that's gonna completely change their account. He's a very solid Hydra DPS, but there's characters like Ayato that can do what he does, and he's a little bit more flexible and a little bit more easy to play, and he has like support options too, and he can do Hyper Bloom a little bit better too. Even though I was saying, you know, the Hyper Bloom Tartaglia is good, I don't think he's like that game changing. I don't know. I think maybe he saw one Tartaglia International comp, he was like, whoa, this comp is crazy, and it's like, yeah. Bennett Shunling is like broken. Have you met Bennett Shunling? Yeah, no, I hard disagree with this. I do think he's a very good character. I'd probably put him in A, right? Maybe A+ if I was making my own tier. A+, maybe S-. He's very solid though. But again, he can be very clunky to play. There's a lot better Hydra DPSs. But he is still very solid. Lejongle Dongle. That's fair. Good shield, good super armor, good shred. That's fair. That's fair. Mm-hmm. Wait, what? It's the shield, right? Not the pillar. I mean, this might be just a quick misspoke. I'm not gonna grill him too much about this. I think there's other things I've grilled him about. Okay, I popped it up here. It is the shield. Jade shield. Characters protected by the Jade shield with decreased elemental res and physical res. He said a pillar. I'm not gonna grill him for that too much. It could just be like I'm misremembering. It's not that big of a deal. I think the criteria one is a bigger criticism. Mm-hmm. Potentially, yeah. I don't necessarily disagree with these things. But again, I think the big thing is set your criteria. What is the criteria we're talking about? Are we talking about this specific abyss? Because Zhongli has more value in this abyss because we have enemies like the Dancers. The Dancers have been some of the most aggro enemies ever in Abyss history. The Dancers are crazy. They have a lot of damage. They're not too hard for like very good players or like, you know, people who are still busted, but people who are still you know, like still growing and like building their characters and things like that. The Dancers are very, very, very oppressive, and having a character like Zhongli is really good, especially because they resist Anemo and they resist Cryo, so your teams are already limited, and then having a character like Zhongli that can go more aggro on them, because they take a long time. They spin, specifically the Dancers that are in the Abyss right now, the one where the I think it's the guy that spins around in the outer circle. When that's happening, you can hit the boss, and it's highly recommended that you hit the boss so you don't waste time. Having a character like Zhongli where you can aggro them is a lot of value. So again, this comes back to the criteria thing. What is your criteria? If your criteria is this specific abyss, I think you rank Zhongli higher because the dancers do exist and the dancers are a big part of this abyss. And because you can get some extra DPS in there while shredding their very bulky resistance, it is it was a lot more valuable than like in a general. But again, what do we rank this on? A general sense? General abysses? Are we ranking this based on current, right? Because I do think current is something to be, just, criteria, right? But what's the criteria? I don't know what the criteria is. Unless I missed it at the beginning. Tell me if I missed it at the beginning. I ain't got no problems with being corrected. No, I think he's super. I think he's super good for early game players to get because again, you're always getting that shred. You're always getting that shield suit. Super armor equals more damage. Right? I think some people have this idea that the only thing a shield gives you is more defense and lets you live. It's like, yes, that's true, but more importantly is you get super armor, so you're not getting interrupted. You don't have to worry about getting hit. You can do your rotations very, very cleanly because you have that super armor and you're not taking damage, you're not getting hit, so you do more you do more DPS with Zhongli because you are getting super armor. You're getting super armor, which is a very valuable thing. Anyway, let's see where he puts him. I would still agree with this though. I actually do not disagree with this placement. I do think he is very, very powerful. And I think if we're considering this abyss, he's here. Because again, having enemies like the dancers that are super aggro, a shield of that quality is super, super, super powerful. So I would personally put him up here. Yeah, that's about it. I would just personally put him up there. Yeah, he's good. He's good. But again, it depends what the criteria is. I don't know what the criteria is. Albedo's aight. Yeah. I don't disagree. Yeah, I'm disagreeing. I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, it's fine. He's sub DPS. He does good, okay, sub DPS. Geo's not inoffensive, but it's not amazing because you could have had a reaction with like Miko or Fischl or Farina, of course. Yeah, whatever. I agree. Ganyu's really strong. There's a lot of better characters though. Most people run Melt. Freeze isn't that good anymore because things can't be frozen anymore. Or not as many things can be frozen these days. I mean, okay, you can't start bringing free-to-play options in here now, in the 11th hour. You can't start bringing up free-to-play options in the 11th hour because everybody has good free-to-play options, right? Mona has like that would bump up Mona, right? Because like Mona has insane free-to-play. Like all these characters have great free-to-play options. Tighnari has great. Keqing has like I don't think that's a good argument. Maybe Tartaglia doesn't have the best free-to-play options. I don't know, but. You can't bring that out in the set your criteria. What is your criteria? I don't know what your criteria is. Please tell me what your criteria is. I wouldn't say, I don't know. Ganyu is a weird one. Ganyu definitely does a lot of good damage. But she definitely relies on the very strong pyro characters we have in this game to do that damage. On her own, it's like she's very, very strong for sure, but there are a lot of stronger characters. Like maybe for me personally, I would put her like in an S minus maybe. I don't think I would put her over Tighnari. Definitely not. I think Aggravate's insane. And maybe same thing with Keqing too. I think the Dendro options are a lot more powerful than what Ganyu can probably provide. And you do have to. I mean, okay. I guess you aim as much as. You aim a little bit more than Tighnari. Like, Tighnari literally is auto-tracking compared to her. Like, you can shoot the floor with the Frost Flake, but do you want to shoot the floor? Actually, don't know. Yeah, I know you can shoot the floor with the Frost Flake, but I don't know. That one, I would have to look up Ganyu videos or look up Ganyu, like, charts or things like that and genuinely see who is doing more damage. Personally, I think Tainari can do more damage. I think all the people that are enabled by Dendro just do more, just because Dendro is ridiculous, and Dendro is way too powerful. I don't think Ganyu is better than any of the people who are enabled by Dendro. I harshly disagree with that. But the tier itself, that's fair. The tier itself is fair. Okay. What argument is that though? Like, what does that mean? What do you mean? That's a weird argument to make. Like, again, if you can't make that argument. You can't make the argument of they need specific characters, so they're not that good, and then put characters like Ganyu or Tartaglia up here, or Qiqi up here too. Okay, I mean, the Qiqi has free to play options, but it's just like, you know, like maybe somebody can't get Bennett that easily. Obviously, there was a free Bennett pretty recently, but there was a free Faruzen too. Like you know what I'm saying? And Faruzen doesn't need C6. She's just harder to build without C6. Like, it doesn't. You can't play both fields with this argument. You can't play both fields of just like, oh, this character needs specific characters, bro. Every single character needs specific characters, except maybe Neverlet, but that's a different story. You can't play both fields. You cannot play both fields, because you can make that same argument for Tartaglia. You can make that same argument for Shunling. Like, you can make that same argument for even Qiqi, right? Like, so many other characters are enabled by... Bro, Venti doesn't do anything if nobody good is with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't have... I don't think that's a factor to consider of, like, oh, like, okay, maybe the Gene constellation, that's a good factor to consider, which you don't even need. I think Faruzen's definitely a lot more important. But having a 4-star character, I don't think is a big factor to consider. Maybe 5-star constellations, that's fine to consider that. But just having a 4-star character, no. He doesn't need C4 Gene. Oh, I meant to pause it. He doesn't need C4 Gene. He needs Faruzen, sure, but, like, you have described an AMO DPS. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, crazy. The Anemo DPS needs the Anemo buffer, and I don't think that's a point. If needing an Anemo buffer is a point against Xiao, then that should be a point against Qiqi, because Qiqi needs Dendro. That should be a point against Tartaglia, because his whole argument for Tartaglia was international Tartaglia. That's a point against Ganyu, because Ganyu needs to melt. You get what I'm saying? Like, again, the criteria isn't solid here, so I don't know what it's being scaled on. I really don't like these reasonings. Again, I don't disagree with the placement, though. Hutao's cool. I don't disagree with the placement, though. I think that's fine. Maybe A+, I would maybe say, but I think A is fine. He's just a very not offensive DPS, an AMO DPS. He can work with a bunch of teams. He's fine with Bennett and things like that. You can play him with, like, Farina and things like that. Like, I don't think there's anything that wrong with him. But I don't like these reasonings. I don't think these reasonings are fair, because it doesn't equal the things that he's saying, I guess. I don't know. It's like, oh, I'm putting this character higher or lower, and these are kind of, like, my weird reasonings for that. Even if it feels like a lot of these reasonings either don't make sense, or they contradict other reasonings that he put for other characters. I don't know. Continuing on. Oh, we finally have a criteria! Okay, they're all based on C0. Okay, that's interesting. Why did it... I don't know why it took so long. I mean, did he say it at the beginning? I don't know. Maybe I missed it. And I'll take the L for that if I missed that. By the way, C0 Hutao is not bad. I don't know where this idea came from that C0 Hutao is bad. Like, you have a little bit less stamina, but the damage is still really good. You can still do dash cancels. You know, dash... and you do dash cancel and then jump, eat, and then jump. Like, I'm pretty sure you're still jumping at least a little bit with C1 as well, because the dash cancel has an internal cooldown. So I'm pretty sure you're still, I don't know, maybe somebody send me some Hutao DPS videos of like a Hutao Pro, but I'm pretty sure you're still jumping at least a little bit, because I know dashes have an internal cooldown. I don't think it's harder. Jumping is not that difficult. Nah, I don't know. I would put her at the top. She's Omega strong at C0. She's Omega strong. She's not worse than Venti. Like, I don't know why Venti is all the way up here. And Tartaglia is very strong, but she's easier to play than Tartaglia. That is so That is so weird. I don't know. What argument is that? I don't know. Like, why are we talking about gameplay now, but we didn't talk about gameplay when it came to Tartaglia? Like, the whole argument about Tartaglia is that, like, International is so strong. Oh my goodness, International is so good. And it's just like, well, playing Tartaglia is difficult. Like, why are we talking about difficulty in playstyle with Hu Tao, but we're not talking about difficulty in playstyle with Tartaglia? When Tartaglia is a lot more infamous for his annoying playstyle. Like, that is, like, one of the main things with Tartaglia is people complaining about his annoying playstyle. But why is that not being... again, I feel like the criteria is not here, and, like, things are, like, not being considered. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not a big fan of, like... I'm using different arguments for different characters. Sometimes I will under-explain a character, like Tartaglia. I will just say, International is good. You guys all know International is good, but, you know, it is. But it's just like, oh, Hu Tao, you know, she can be a little bit difficult to play with, like, C0. I mean, I don't think it's that difficult. I don't think a jump canceling is that difficult. Compared to paying attention to Tartaglia's cooldowns with, like, his E, and you get punished if your cooldown's a little bit longer. Like, I think that's significantly worse. But regardless... both should be considered, but it was only considered with Hu Tao, and I don't think that's fair, right? I don't think that's fair to Hu Tao, that her difficulty of play was considered, and Tartaglia's wasn't. Like, come on. Even Ganyu's, right? If you play Ganyu without a shield, you're gonna get interrupted during those char shots against certain enemies, right? Like, that could be considered too. Like, again, there's no criteria. What's the criteria? Weapons are good, yeah. I do say her placement, the tier itself, I think it's fine. I would put her a lot higher. C0 Hu Tao is a monster. Baizu. Baizu's super solid. Dendro's good. He's good. He's the jack of all trades, master of none. Heal a bit, shield a bit, good Dendro application. But he's not the best at any one of those. You want a shield to break though. Doesn't he have a thing that can activate when a shield breaks? I thought you wanted a shield to break. That's fine. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Yaya's really good. Yaya's really good, but again, you didn't consider Sucrose with Venti, so why are we considering Yaya with, Baizu? That's, again, I'm going back to my main criticism, is that where's the criteria? You have not set a criteria yet. Like, why are we only comparing to 4 stars when you want to put a character... Like, it's literally just like, I want to put a character lower, so I will compare them to a 4 star so that I can put them lower, right? But if I want to put a character higher, I will not mention it. Which is like, that's not fair, you know? Because you can easily compare, like, Venti to Sucrose. You can easily compare, like, freaking, like, Fischl to Miko and things like that. But these things just weren't mentioned. And it's just unfair. That's just not fair. I do disagree with the placement, though. And I guess it's still the craziest thing is that I don't disagree with the placement. I think Baizu's a solid character. But... I don't think he's super duper insane. Like, Dendro is a really insane... I mean, I would put him, like, A+. I would definitely put him S. Again, if I would make my tier list, it would be, like, S+. I'd probably put S++. Because I think some characters are so insane. I'd probably put S++, S+, S, S-, and then on that list, I would put Baizu, like, S. Or maybe S-. He is a very solid character, but he's not, like, super duper insane. Because again, he's the jack of all trades, master of none. He can heal, he can Dendro application, he can shield, but he's not the best at any one of those. He just does a little bit of each. But he's still really good. And again, I don't like this argument that, like, oh, because Yayo exists, he's worse, because you didn't make that argument for all the characters that can apply to. Bro, he didn't make that when it came to Qiqi. Bro, Qiqi is worse than everybody else. Why is Qiqi up here? Why is Qiqi up here, bro? Diana is better Qiqi in every certain way of the sense. But she didn't get bumped down because of that, because, oh, she can heal. Bro, Baizu can heal too. I don't know. There's no criteria. I feel like he's just placing things. Eula. I agree. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Retry. I like that retry emote. That's good. That's good. Even if your sword with Eula doesn't hit, you're still probably fine. Like the hit itself is very, very, very powerful. Like saying, oh, it doesn't hit, so you need to retry. That's that's a bit disingenuous. I think that's a bit disingenuous. Even if it doesn't crit, it's doing like crazy damage. Of course, it could do more if you do crit. Of course, of course, of course. But saying if it doesn't crit, it does nothing is very disingenuous, I think. Whoa, that is way too low. Oh. No, but see, that's not fair. Like this is what I'm saying is just like, okay, why is playstyle? Because okay. Why is playstyle being included here, but it's not included for the characters whose playstyles can be difficult? Like Tartaglia is also notorious for missing his critical rate too, for missing a critical hit too, but he wasn't condemned for that. Putting her in B, my guy, like with Qiqi, you have put her in the same tier as Qiqi. Like, can we look at this list right now where Eula is equal to Albedo and Qiqi? Like, I understand that physical doesn't have that many good characters. I understand if you miss the critical, you're missing a lot of damage, but that does not justify putting her down here in the same tier as Qiqi and Mona. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? This is crazy. This is this is super duper crazy. Like again, there's no criteria. There's absolutely no criteria here. What is the criteria? I don't know what the criteria is. The criteria just like overall like synergy with characters. Like the synergy with characters was not mentioned or at all. Like it like DPS for like deep. She does really good DPS. Like why is that not like focused on at all? Like okay, if you miss the critical, that's annoying, but that doesn't make like again I don't know what the criteria is. Is the criteria like consistency? Is consistency a issue now? Like I don't know. Like I would consider Ganyu getting interrupted by enemy attacks because she has to stand there and charge shot being an issue with consistency. I would say Venti not being able to do anything to single target enemies or not being able to pull in enemies who are resistant to his CC or enemies that just are not affected by it that much, like some of the more healthier enemies just don't get damaged too much by his thing anymore. Like that's a consistency issue too, but Venti wasn't strike down for that one. Like, this is way, way, way too low for only 2 issues of one of them not even being her fault, being that physical just doesn't have much love or many supports, which is true. But it would not put her this. No, I don't. I highly disagree. You put Eula in the same place as Qiqi, Albedo, and Mona. Like, ignore Albedo and Mona for a second. Qiqi. You were telling me with a straight face you think Eula is as useful to you as Qiqi. That is not true. That is just I cannot agree with this at all. I cannot. I cannot agree with this, and I cannot agree with the reasonings given because it's like, let me take the bad aspects of this character and say this is all she is. The big aspects, the good aspects of this character were not considered at all. The fact that she could one-shot like insane amounts. What happens when that critical does hit? Like we only talked about, oh, if that critical doesn't hit, you have to retry. What about when that critical does hit and it's a fat with a PH hit? Like it is a fat hit. Like why was that not considered or talked about? Like I don't know. That's not fair. I don't think that's fair to Eula. I don't think it's fair that like she was just put down here just because like physical doesn't get love and sometimes you can miss your critical hit on the sword explosion. Like no, Eula's still perfectly fine. Also Hyperbloom Eula, shout out to Hyperbloom Eula. Any Hyperbloom Eula lovers out there? Hyperbloom Eula is also really fun to play. Definitely would recommend that build. Of course that wasn't talked about either. Of course that wasn't talked about. I don't know. Well, this video has gone on for a while. We made it through halfway through the video. I didn't think I would interrupt this much and like talk about my own opinions, but hey, that's the type of person I am. So I think we'll stop it there. right? All right, I think we are going to wrap it up there. This video is kind of getting a little bit long. I didn't think I'd interrupt as much as I did, but you know, I got opinions. You know what I mean? I got opinions. I got things I want to talk about, and I'm trying to make this transformative as well. So I'm not just like, you know, standing in the back of his video being like, wow, oh, I disagree with that. I agree with that. Like, I like my takes to be a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more like, you know, give specific examples, like try to like explain and like understand things. So we've only made it halfway through. If you guys want me if you guys want to see me react to the other half of this, tell me in the comments below. If you guys want me to make my own tier list, I don't mind doing that. Like, it could be fun, but only if you guys would watch that, I would make one. And yeah, make sure to check out the original creator. It's good old Yakes here. Good old EX. Please do check him out. I'm gonna link him in the description. Even if I disagreed with a lot of his opinions, I'm not a big fan of putting a lot of these characters on here with almost no criteria or just random criteria, or like, I'll put this one character here for this reason, but I won't put this character here because of this reason. I feel like they contradict. I feel like the reasonings contradict each other a lot. I think the actual placements for a good majority of them were fine. Like, a lot of things, that's the thing I said constantly, is like, I don't like these reasonings, but I'm fine with the placement. Even then, right? It's just, you know, it's just opinions. I don't think the guy is like dumb or stupid or whatever. Like, I would never say that. Like, no, it's just opinions, right? At the end of the day, I think it's all just opinions. At the end of the day, we're just having fun. Genshin, a good game. I like talking about Genshin, and I'm sure this guy likes to talk about Genshin too. So show him some love. Check out his videos. Check out my videos, and whatever else you guys want to see from me, tell me in the comments. Leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm gonna see you guys later, and peace out.